episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers and afraid. I'm your host, Blythe Brumleve, and we were proudly presented by SPI Logistics. And we're back with another live episode recording at Manifest, the Future of Supply Chain and Logistics. And we've got another fantastic interview for y'all today. We are speaking with Rene of Kaleris, Senior Director of Product Management, discussing the visibility perception gap between shippers and terminal operators, which visibility, I think, is a problem that shippers are always trying to solve. So happy to revisit this visibility conversation. We had a visibility conversation at last year's Manifest. So give us a little bit of overview of who Rene is and how you got into logistics in general.
Yeah, so visibility is a very hot topic right now.
Yes, very
and
much.
It's been a hot topic for I don't know how many years now, maybe 4 or 5, right after COVID, the supply chain bottlenecks hit.
Right.
And it's been interesting. I got into supply chain right out of college. So I was a kid, 2010. Someone said that I could make a difference, and 15 years later, I'm still trying to make a difference.
Hooked you.
Still here. I don't know why sometimes. And I've been in ocean transportation for most of my time. So I've been working with port authorities, marine terminals, shipping lines for almost 15 years now.
Wow.
And then I took a little break and I moved into this field of railroads. So it was adjacent. So I just, needed a break for about 4 years. And I work with some of the big railroads here in the U.S., Class 1 railroads.
Oh, nice.
Intermodal transportation, moving containers around. And then I came back to Kaleris 2022, I want to say. And I've been working with Kaleris ever since. And then Kaleris, we do a lot of things. We mainly build software, execution software for shipping lines, marine terminals, port authorities, and shippers. And then we have terminal operating systems, shipping lines, transportation management systems, yard management systems. So pretty much, if you have a container, you have it in the ocean, and you move it inland, we pretty much have a software solution for it.
Oh, wow, interesting. So even because from what I understand, a year ago, discussing the visibility issue, a lot of problems revolve around sort of the last mile, like the drivers not having access to that specific information. And so it kind of sounds like with your platform, with having a TMS, that kind of solves that end-to-end supply chain problem.
Good question. I'll tell you a story. When I was, so I took a break for 4 years and I went to GE Transportation. And I went to one of the GE headquarters, so General Electric Transportation, very old company. And in one of the headquarters, I went down to some basement. I think I got lost. And I found a bunch of documents from a supply chain conference from the year 2001.
Wow.
We didn't have computers, PowerPoint didn't exist. And it was a little book, someone had printed it out. And I was looking through it, and I saw a slide there from 2001, that's 24 years ago. And what you just said is written on that slide. That same problem has been around for at least 24 years. And probably before, because people were talking about it in 2001.
Wow.
Visibility, where's my cargo? Why can't I get more visibility? 2001. So I wish I could say, yeah, we have a platform, solves all the problems in the world. It's probably more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of drivers, and just in particular, just from the drivers that I speak to, it's probably going to be a problem for the foreseeable future as well. Now, I want to get a little bit into this report that you did in a thought leadership report conducted by maritime research firm Thetius. It uncovers a startling disconnect that 87% of terminal operators believe that they offer adequate to excellent visibility, but only 25% of shippers feel that they actually receive it. Talk to me about this perception.
Yeah. Interesting. There was a good paper we published with Thetius, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And Thetius is just a great firm. We gathered a lot of very interesting data. And it all started with me and Susie Swindle, our marketing communications director. We were having a meeting with Thetius. We were just having a conversation. And we were just talking about supply chain. And in that meeting, I couldn't tell them in how many executive meetings I've been talking about visibility. I couldn't tell them, I couldn't count how many times I've talked to shipper executives, shipping line CEOs, they make billions of dollars, marine terminal CEOs and port authorities directors, I couldn't tell them how many times I've been in a meeting with them talking about where's my container? When can I pick up my container? When can I send my driver to the terminal? When's the vessel ETA? Like, when is the vessel going to show up? It's been countless of meetings that I've had over the years about this visibility gap that you just mentioned. So one of the conclusions of the research is that, yeah, there is a gap. There is a communication disconnect. And everyone talks about it, and everyone has a lot of anecdotes. But through this research, we looked at a lot of data that was very interesting. So for example, I'll just give you, a data point. So it depends on where you go. So we have products all over the world. So it depends on where you go, who you're working with. But there's a specific area in the world where we measured how many vessel ETAs a terminal receives. So if you're a truck driver, yeah, breathe. Here we go. So if you're a truck driver and you're working for a shipper and the shipper tells you, go pick up my container because I have an import and it's important stuff and I have a just-in-time factory or whatever, go pick up my container. If you're a truck driver, you ask your marine terminal, hey, marine terminal, when's my vessel going to show up and when's my container going to be available? And the marine terminal, they ask the shipping line. It depends on where you go, but in this particular region in the world, the shipping line would change the vessel ETA 15 times. 15 times.
Only 15?
So just imagine you go to an airport and you're waiting for your flight and your airline changes your vessel ETA, your ship,
or your gate,
or your airplane ETA 15 times. That'd be great. And they have no control. They have no idea. So then we have this piece of data 15 times, and then from there it just trickles down, and it's just a disaster. So this number that you gave us, 80 something percent,
87.
87. It's a very real disconnect, and sadly, it's such a big problem that it's not. I wish there was a product out there. Click a button on the right, and then your problems are solved. This is way bigger than that.
So how do you attack it?
Another very good questions. Yeah, good questions today here. At the end, the conclusions of the report are pretty powerful. They're based on data that at least I haven't seen anywhere else. Because we gather data from marine terminals and shipping lines, and then we gather data from shippers. So it's both sides of the fence. In a lot of cases, you feel like you have two teams pulling in different directions. One of the conclusions of the report is you probably shouldn't focus on visibility. Yeah, for the past maybe 5 years after COVID or the supply chain bottlenecks, everyone's like, I need a visibility product and visibility product here and there. One of the conclusions is that you probably shouldn't focus on visibility. You should probably focus on your own execution. Yeah, so if you're a node in this supply chain, the better you execute on your operation, more likely than not, you're going to be helping the visibility problem. And then we have some, again, scary numbers. We measure these with our customers and their customers, and it's more of like an industry problem. People call it digital friction. So that's the technical term in supply chain. We've measured that in a lot of cases, marine terminals, shipping lines, dray providers, and sometimes even warehouse management system users, they use around 30% of their capabilities in the software. So imagine you're a yard somewhere inland and you buy a warehouse management system. You're paying for it every year and you only use 30% of your capabilities. Yeah. So one of the conclusions of the report, or to answer your question, how do you tackle this? Our suggestion is you should probably focus on your execution first.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because a previous interview that we were just talking about is they kind of said the same thing that you were saying within warehousing, is that even with their own processes and their own sort of robotic solutions and things like that, that they only get to about 30% of that usage. And then they never really see the full picture of the solutions that they already have in-house. And so it's interesting that that is just permeating throughout, or maybe scary, or just a little concerning, or maybe this is something that you want to address.
Digital friction is the actual term, and 30% is very low.
It makes sense if you think about how software kind of rules our life now, and you really only have so much bandwidth for each of these different tools. And so I guess you don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know what you don't want to learn either. And that's probably the latter is probably more of what's going on in this situation. And so how are you guys bridging this gap? How are you guys attempting to solve this problem? Like if you release a report like this and it's like just, work better.
Yeah.
Like how do you talk to your customers and tell them to work better and use their tools more?
Well, people process products, yeah. Like at the end of the day, I think that now more than ever, everyone in supply chain, we all understand that supply chain is about people more than it is about software. And maybe software is more about people than we want to believe right now. So people process products, yeah. So when we talk to our customers, we try to encourage them to use more of their tools, and that leads to a lot of process changes. So they need to invest in training, they need to invest in knowledge transfer, they need to invest in their people using their products. So another very scary number that we have is that a lot of people don't want to be in supply chain, especially the users of these products, truck drivers, marine terminal operators, ship captains, railroad engineers. 20 years ago, working for a railroad was very appealing. Now, not so much. Yeah.
Drivers as well.
Drivers as well. Yeah. So one of the things we encourage our customers is like, you guys we can help you, someone else can help you, but you guys need to invest more in your people using our tools, because if you can drive that number 30% to 35%, you're going to add a lot of value. You don't have to solve a problem 100% to create value. So that's one thing that we do. So people process product. And another thing that we do, so focusing more on software, interoperability is another technical term that you're going to hear more and more, or you probably already do. So the interoperability is just a fancy way of saying you need software that can talk to each other, that can work together.
From the port to the terminal.
Exactly, yeah. And depending on where you go, in a lot of places it's worse than others, but you still find TMS applications that don't take EDI. And EDI was built 1980. You still find applications that run in Access. I saw a few years ago already, 2 or 3 years ago, a truck TMS that was based on Access Windows XP. So they had kept a desktop.
I've not heard that in a while. Windows XP.
They had kept a desktop with a CD driver for Windows XP. And that was the only desktop that would run Windows XP, and that was their TMS. They would print stuff, give that to drivers, drivers would give them stuff, type stuff in. It was a Microsoft Access application. So one thing that we try to do is our applications need to be built to talk to each other. It doesn't matter how. It can be EDI, API, data streaming, smoke signals, for whatever anyone cares.
How do you integrate that?
Yeah. But more and more, we hope that as technology progresses and people adopt new technology, give it 10 years and applications are going to be built to talk to each other. And that'll put us in a better place.
I just had an interview earlier today that was talking about different AI agents within logistics that are talking to each other. And very soon you're going to have a carrier that's going to have their own AI agent that is going to do all the grunt work that the driver doesn't want to call and check in with the shipper, doesn't want to call and check in with the broker. So he's going to have his own agent that's going to call a broker's AI agent, and the agents are just going to talk to each other. And so, yeah, I mean, software is really, kind of taking away a lot of like the grunt work. But I think if I kind of like read between the lines of like what you're saying, like it really starts with sort of the bare bones of you guys almost like work as consultants. It sounds like to really help a lot of maybe these legacy companies adapt in a more meaningful way into technology adoption. Is that maybe a safe assumption?
We have a services arm, yeah. We have a products is our main thing, but we have a services arm. And yeah, that's just our experience. Like, people can have all the product in the world you want. At the end, you still need people to stay close to your customers.
Well, it sounds too like you don't even really want to sell a product to a customer unless they're capable enough that you don't maybe want them to be one of those people that only use 30% of it.
Optimization services. That's the fancy word. That's what the salespeople say. We sell optimization services.
All right, so a couple more questions here. Is there anything important that you feel like we should mention that we haven't already talked about?
But AI, you talked about AI.
Oh, please, yeah. Tell us what you
Everyone
guys are
talks
doing in
about AI.
AI.
Well, not us, but so I'll give you another number.
Okay.
This is a big number, 315 billion. 315 billion is the amount of money in 2025 that the four big technology companies in the US are going to spend in AI. So that is Amazon, Facebook or Meta, Google or Alphabet. Um, and so it's Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft.
Oh, I was no,
Microsoft,
not
those four.
OpenAI. So yeah, kind of this.
$315 billion. A lot of that is in data centers and compute power. A lot of that is in the way that they use chips and they come up with the agent that has to say something. A lot of that is in the way that happens. But AI, yeah, it's coming. Yeah, it's a big number.
I mean, the way that interview went earlier, it was one of those things where I was like, I would love to clone myself, and if I could clone myself as a business owner and be able to, have somebody sit in on sales meetings with me, and I think from their lens, what they were saying, as long as you're upfront and honest with how you're using AI, then most people do not have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's a big number, and there's a lot that's happening now. There's more that's coming in the future. The World Economic Forum, they publish reports about everything. I'm a big fan. Every year they publish a global risk report. The one for 2025 came out in December 24. The biggest risk, global risk that they found was misinformation and the misuse of information. Yeah, AI. Yeah. So as long as you're upfront and you tell people like, hey, you're not talking to Lindsay here. This is a robot. I think there has to be a lot of control around that. Yeah.
Yes.
Legislation probably. A lot of standards need to come into place. We're working on a lot of interoperability standards, the way systems communicate with each other. Because to your point, you have to be upfront about it. Because if not, you get into a very gray area of how are you using my information? Who am I talking to? Who am I revealing my information to? Sometimes you're talking to a human and it's in confidence, but if you're talking to a robot that's connected to the cloud, you don't always click on the button of accepting user terms when I'm talking to someone who I think it's a human. So you're right.
Right.
Being upfront is going to matter in the future.
So, last couple questions here. Is there anything else from this report? I guess I should probably ask from the Thetius report that you want to mention.
We can talk about it for 8 hours, so you can take me wherever you want to go.
Well, any more cool stats, I should say.
I also have a lot of them. Well, no, it's just a very dynamic world, changing world.
It's constantly evolving, especially with technology.
Especially now, yeah. In the future, I think we're going to see a lot of AI. Big data scientist is the fastest growing job position, if you will. Big data scientist. FinTech is number 2. And number 3, you guessed it, AI. The jobs that we're closing in supply chain, the fastest, telemarketers, people that input data.
Oh, interesting.
So you're going to see a lot of electronic bill of lading things going around these days, especially in shipping. My background is in ocean transportation. So in ocean transportation, everyone's talking about the electronic bill of lading. In railroads, we all talk about the electronic bill of lading. The people that input that information, those jobs are less and less frequent now. Those are the two at the bottom, telemarketers, data input people. And at the top you have, big data scientists, FinTech, sure, and AI. So yeah, the world's going to change, yeah.
It's a lot of evolution, I think, in a very short amount of time, but it's interesting to hear how that evolution is happening in technology, AI, but then also how it affects the global supply chain jobs. So this was fantastic. So thank you, Rene.
Yeah,
Where can folks follow you, follow more of your work? Maybe get set up with Kaleris?
Kaleris.com is our website.
Okay.
We have our links there. I think it's better if people go there.
I'll put them in the show notes.
And you'll see what we are working on, yeah.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Cool. Appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.